All right, so here is my audience. There's people in the background of the one room. All right, put them right here. Okay, so I am Nate. I'm going to be giving my informative speech presentation about sleep. All right, so sleep is just one of those things that just about everybody does. It's something that I don't think any of us could live without. Like, what do you think would happen to your body if you didn't sleep for a week? Like, what would happen to your brain and just everything in general? Probably wouldn't be very good. So, because there's a whole science behind sleeping, and learning how to improve it can actually make a lot of differences in your life. Because sleep is one of the most important things that I can think of that we need to survive. And in the past, I myself have taken a lot of psychology classes, so I've kind of learned how important sleep is for the body in general. So that's kind of why I chose this topic today for my speech. So first, I'm going to be discussing the benefits of getting better sleep. And then second, I'll kind of talk about what happens when you don't get enough. And then lastly, I'll kind of give some tips that you can do to get better sleep in general. Before I get into my first point though, I want to show, this is kind of the science behind it. So there's 4 different sleeping cycles. So we have monophasic, biphasic, everyman, and uberman. So there's just like the darker part is where you sleep. So I just want to show that off, some of the different types of sleep. All right, I'll get into the first point. So I often hear a lot of people saying they wish they slept better. And when you kind of get into the reasons why getting better sleep is so important, you kind of start to understand why. Because it can do some really good things for you, like improving your mood, preventing stress and burnout, and it can even do things that just make your brain work faster and better in general. So your mood can change just with a couple more hours of sleep. The Sleep Foundation specifically says that sleep restores the body and improves energy levels, which is obviously pretty important. And it says sleeping more can even prevent mental distress, which, I mean, it's always good to hear. And people who have certain mental disorders like anxiety and depression, their symptoms can actually be eased with a more consistent sleep schedule. And then stress and burnout is something that I feel like we can all say we struggle with. And with more sleep, that can also be prevented. The body produces cortisol like all the time and reduces it while we're sleeping. And cortisol is one of the chemicals related to stress mainly. And sleep is actually often referred to as an anxiety inhibitor, which that's just in the name, kind of calms you down. And Sleepopolis, which is an organization that talks about sleep, states that our body is constantly performing chemical and biological processes that regulate our body and just keep us in check. That's why it's so important. And then when you sleep, it makes things easier to remember and retain information, because sleep is, in the science world, it's often already associated with memory and thinking as is, and it gives the brain time to establish things like neural connections, which is something that's really important just to have our body thrive. And our problem solving skills actually increase, and we get better at them when we get enough sleep. So now that I've kind of given you guys the benefits of getting more sleep, I kind of want to get into the negatives of not getting enough, because some of it is pretty bad. There's a lot of health risks that come with it, and there's many sleep disorders actually that prevent you from getting a good night's sleep in general. So according to UC Davis, not getting enough sleep is associated with 7 of the leading causes of death, which is already pretty bad. So things like heart disease, sepsis, which I've heard can cause death pretty quickly like that, and other brain problems like stroke and aneurysms that are very serious issues can be caused by you not getting enough sleep. And then there's other diseases like Alzheimer's, which are already a terrible disease. But less sleep can actually worsen them. So I already said UC Davis says that all mental disorders that are like Alzheimer's come with some sort of sleep disruption. So that it's already a problem, and the sleep is often one of the first things that changes from the disease. So overall, it's just not a good combo to have. And actually, not enough sleep can actually make the disease progress even faster than it would normally. And then certain disorders make it impossible to fall asleep when you want or fall asleep for a certain amount of time. So there's things like insomnia, which is trouble falling and staying asleep for a long time. There's sleep apnea, which stops your breathing completely and can wake you up during very important moments of your sleep. And there's narcolepsy, which basically prevents you from controlling where you fall asleep. Your body could just be out in the public and you just go like that and fall asleep. All right, so now I want to move on to my last point, which is sort of how to get better sleep. There's some things you can do that are really easy. So doing things like establishing a consistent schedule, improving your nutrition, and creating a relaxing environment are 3 easy things you can do. So now I'll get into those a little bit more. So I'm sure everyone's schedule is already busy. We're always doing something, but sleep is always something that I think you need to consider. Because adults need no more than 8 hours. So the Mayo Clinic says that you don't need to carve out any more time than that. And I actually have a graph on that as well. So right here, it just talks about how much time the average person needs for sleep at certain ages. So you can see for an adult, I switched to the wrong one. For an adult, it's around 7 or 8. You don't need any more than that. So you want to stay in that range consistently every single night. Yeah, and in my next point for that, going to sleep and waking up at the same time actually makes the whole process a lot easier. And then doing something relaxing before you go to bed, if you struggle to fall asleep at first, it's something that can help. And then as your body gets more used to falling asleep at that time, you won't have to do that anymore. And then nutrition is another important thing in our life, not even including sleep, but they kind of lean on each other as well. So you want to base your nutrition can help your sleep. So Johns Hopkins Medicine says that things like alcohol, which can help you fall asleep and make it easier, can wake you up during vital moments of the sleep cycle, which is never a good thing. If you're in deep sleep and it wakes you up, it's never going to be good. And then things that mess with your stomach, could be anything like spicy food or just acidic foods, whatever is going to mess with your stomach, you want to avoid. And then obviously things like caffeine that are going to keep you up, you want to avoid for a couple hours before you go to sleep. And then the last part of it, the setting you're in can actually make a huge difference for when you're trying to fall asleep. So keeping a room that has a dark, cool, and quiet environment can help a lot with that. And I actually have a picture just of an example of a room that could be relaxing. So I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's just a dark room, minimal light, relaxing, a place where you can easily fall asleep, not with any bright lights or loud noises. And certain things, this is just for me specifically, but I know a lot of people like them, like ambient sounds that could be like a fan or a white noise could put you to sleep like a baby in certain situations. And then again, doing something calming in bed that tells your body to relax can also help with that whole process of getting to sleep. All right. So, overall, I think sleep is just one of those things that we need to take a little bit more seriously. And today I discussed some of the benefits of getting sleep. And then I talked about what can happen if you don't get enough sleep. And then I gave you some tips on how to get better sleep. And I feel like all that should be taken into consideration because sleep is something that's so important. And I feel like it's something that a lot of us need to learn how to do, genuinely. And I hope you've learned a lot today about how important sleep truly is. And I think it's crazy to think that a lot of things in your life can change just by closing your eyes. So thank you, and I'll show my audience one more time. I don't know if you can see. And there you go.